everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to my January stats and favorites video. So, wow, I know everyone's saying this, but January feels like it was the longest month ever. Like 2020 was the longest year of our lives, and then January 2021 was the longest month of my life. Like, what? But let us go ahead and dive in, because if you've never been to one of these before, what I like to do for my monthly wrap up is I don't go through all the books I've read. I have a playlist that has my weekly reading wrap ups. You can find it, I'll link it up down below. So I do weekly wrap ups where I talk about every book that I've read, because as you'll see, I just cannot make a video where I talk about every book that I've read in one book. So people will ask me that. I'm sorry, I can't do it, because I read 74 books this month. And even if I only talked for 1 minute about each book, which is not what would happen because I would gush profusely, we would be here for hours. So, and in fact, there is hours. If you added up all of the videos where I do weekly wrap-ups, you'd have about 4 hours worth of me talking about books. So definitely go check those out if you want more in detail about every book that I read. The way that this is going to go, I'm going to quickly talk about my stats and some of the things that happened this month, and then I will talk about my 5 favorite reads, or 5 reads that I haven't talked about as much yet that were favorites for me. Starting in 21, we did implement the 6th star as well. So in general, the reads I talk about at these will be my 6 stars, except unless I've talked about them a lot. Because sometimes that happens too. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'll move over so I got room for my graphics over here. I read 74 books this month for a total of 22,056 pages. This averages 760 pages per day. Yeah. And I even film these when I have a couple days of the month left. Today's the 30th when I'm filming, just because of time and everything. I have to do it that way. But when I reached 70, I was like, let's cap this off. And then I had 4 DNFs, which we'll talk about here. So let's talk about that. These are my, this is the genre. Wait, okay. The form that I read the book in is I read 43 ebooks, 26 physical books, and 28 audiobooks. Some of those match up because I will read an audiobook along with a physical book. I will do that. The genres I read were 25 dark romance, 11 contemporary romance, 17 historical romance, 2 fantasy romance, 12 paranormal romance, 2 dystopian romance, and 1 erotic romance. You'll notice in how I put it up, I don't put romance behind each of these, but basically if it's ever not a romance, I will make a big deal about it. All of these fit into the romance category for what they were. Then the ratings of the books that I read, I had 4 DNFs, 8 6 stars, 19 5 stars, 10 4.5 stars, 18 4 stars, 5 3.5 stars, 8 3 stars, 2 2.5 stars, and 1 2 star. So, wowza. I also reread a lot of books this month, just to kind of chat about what that breakdown means. So we had a few events happen. I was rereading all of the Core Riley books with some of my friends. I also reread Breaking Perfect. I did a buddy read with that with some friends. I also reread, there was something else that I reread as well that I can't remember. And so a few of those fit into the 6 and 5 stars, so that's something to know, is that I was rereading some favorite books with some friends. And since a 6 star is a new thing to me, I've like added those, the ones that like, I added those to 6 stars if they would be rated that. That was a really complicated way to say this. Also, after the advice and chatting with some of my friends, I do have now a master list of my 6 stars that I'm creating with some of my spreadsheets. And so if it's a reread, I have it in like a different column than if it is like a brand new to me 6 star, because when I reread books, it's usually because they are a 5 star. And so then I see if I bump them up to a 6 star. And if I do, I want to talk about why I do. And this 6-star list, as I've shared when I made the video, my new rating system, is that I love to be able to give books 5 stars, and I will give 5 stars to everything. But in the previous year, I had over 200 books that I gave 5 stars to. So when I was making my favorite lists at the end of the year, it was kind of difficult because everything was just rated the same. And so after seeing some other creators who have a 6-star, that for me is just, it frees me up because I'm just able to give stuff 5 stars if it deserves it. As you can see, I had 19 5 stars because all of those books they gave me joy. They were fun to read. I want to recommend them to you guys, and they were great. And so I like to have something that's above that to say that, like, this book can still have a 5 star, but then this one has a 6 star because I felt even more strongly about it than I did about some other ones. That's just how it goes. Let's see, anything else right? Oh yeah, we had the historical romance readathon, was why I had a heavier amount of those. But then I was very heavily into historical romance at the beginning of the month. And then as we got more through, after I was rereading those Mafia books, I really went on a Mafia binge. And I think you'll see that if you go back and watch my weekly wrap-ups, that I have been deep into the Mafia corners of the book life recently. So now I want to kind of quickly go over my favorite reads or notable reads for me. Like I said, I usually have 5 of these. And I won't talk about them too much because, like I said, they will be talked about more in depth in my others. So the first one I want to talk about is Bitten by Lexi C. Foss. I recently read this series. This is book 4 in the Blood Alliance. This is that series that just the week before last I completely gobbled up, and I got some of my friends to dive into it as well, like I do. And it is in this dystopian paranormal world where vampires and lycans now rule society, and humans are used as human blood bags and sex slaves, and to be done with however the paranormals see fit. Thank you to Heather from Hey Booktubes for recommending this in the Read My Lips podcast, because when I heard the premise of this story, I had to get on it. So there's a lot of other setup that happens to get to this book, but in this book we're dealing with kind of a recluse vampire. He's a royal, technically. That's kind of like how the structure of the vampires goes. And he comes across this woman who's escaped from a lichen breeding camp, and she's near death. And he decides that he hasn't had a toy in a long time, so he's going to heal her, and she's going to be his pet. And he gets more than he bargained for with this pet, whose name is Willow, and she is a fighter, and it's one of the reasons why she was left for dead, because she wasn't just submitting to their rape and destruction of her body, and she was like, fuck you guys, I'm gonna do what I want. And so Ryder, also not being as big of a dick as some of the other people that we've met, he's like, you know what, I'm cool. I like that you have fire. I like that you are brave and daring, and you're going to be a fun pet to have. But of course, there's much more to it than that. There's a scene near the end of this book, like the way this, and this isn't even the end of the series, like there's more books to come, but there's kind of like a plot threads like within the story too about this group of friends, and seeing that come to a culmination in this book was one of the coolest things that I've seen. And I just wouldn't have thought that this series would mean as much to me as it did. I want to end up getting the paperbacks of these because I want to just color them all up. I'll have to wait though, but I put them in my wish list so I remember them, and then I'm just like, next time you go on a buying spree, I have to buy myself those ones because their covers are really beautiful. They're not normal covers that I would think, but like that is what paranormal books look like. So I just need to get used to it. I haven't read many of the I haven't read much paranormal in a while, and I want to get back into it. And this was a great start to kind of put me in the mood for Pharaoh Feb, which is coming up as well. Another one that I really loved was The Darkest Temptation by Danielle. This is about Ronan and Mila, and this is a captor-captive situation. Mila goes to Russia to find her father, who she doesn't know that he's a member of the Bratva, and so she goes to Russia to find her dad, and she ends up getting lured into the trap of one of her father's enemies, and so this becomes a captor-captive situation. But it's even like more horrifying because she likes him before she finds out who he is. And so she's already like wanting to fuck this guy. And she doesn't realize that she basically fell into his trap. And feel really bad for her because she's like 19 and he's 32. And I don't know, it was just a really badass mafia book. I hadn't read much Bratva lately, and so I've read a couple Bratva now recently, and I'm like, yes, the Bratva's the most brutal. The Russian mob is like, it's pretty great. I'm reading one right now that has Irish mob in it, and I'm like, I love that. There's all these different crazy mobs everywhere. But I'm torn between like the Bratva and, I mean, I love a good Italian mob in New York. Like, I'm just a sucker for the New York as well. Then this book also I've talked a ton about, so I won't say too much. But Bound to a Warrior by Donna Fletcher. I gave 6 stars to this book. I wax poetic about this book in, I did 5 random historical reviews as well as swooniest heroes. I just love Duncan. So this is about Mercy and Duncan, who they are chained together. They are both prisoners of the king. This takes place in the year 1005 in Scotland, and they don't know who each other is. They don't know why they are stuck together. Look at this cover. This cover, guys, is just life to me. And they jump off a cliff together to get away, and Mercy can't swim, but she dives in anyway, and then Duncan and her have to survive together in the Highlands until they can get back to his family, as well as to get their chains unhooked from each other. And Duncan is so swoony and so kind and just absolutely wonderful to her. Like, it makes me so happy. Just how sweet he is with her and loving, and also how smart Mercy is. Like, she's in a very dangerous situation and she doesn't do dumb girl shit. Like, she trusts this man. She realizes she doesn't have a reason to be afraid of Duncan. She is keeping secrets, but they are valid secrets. Like, she's not just keeping secrets for no damn reason. And Duncan as well. And this is the first book in the Warrior King series. I've read the second one as well. I can't wait to read more of these. I just love how Donna Fletcher tells a story. Like, oh, she just makes me so happy. She tells such a great story. So, yeah, I love this book. Then I got to talk about A Touch of Darkness. Scarlett St. Clair is one of the Pharaoh Feb authors who is going to be highlighted. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling, and it's a direct Hades and Persephone retelling, given that, like, they are Hades and Persephones. They just live in kind of a reimagined world. I would call this a fantasy because there's technology and stuff, but it's still like a reordered world. Like, it's not the world as we know it, and there's gods and goddesses, and they're like celebrities. And so Hades is one of, you know, like the original 3, you know, Hades, Zeus, and Poseidon. And Persephone is a reporter, and she's trying to be independent from her mother, who her mother is always trying to force her to fit into the mold that she wants her to. And so Persephone gets a job being a reporter, and one night she ends up going to one of Hades' clubs with some of her friends, and she ends up in a game of being taught a game of poker by Hades, but she doesn't know that it's Hades because she doesn't know what he looks like. And then they're just he's just teaching her, but she loses to him quite a few times, and that is as good as being in a contract. So he tricked her into this contract, and he gives her a task to fulfill. And if she can create life in the underworld within 6 months, she fulfills the contract. And if she doesn't, then she'll belong to him. The thing is, one of Persephone's powers should be that she can create life, because she's the daughter of Demeter. And Persephone's a goddess in her own right as well, but she can't. In fact, everything that she touches will, like, die instead. And so Hades is able to see into you and, like, know what your greatest weakness is. And so he really is able to make his challenges individualized to each person. There's a very interesting reason why he does that. I found it absolutely fascinating. I ended up reading the first and the second book. The third one doesn't come out till May, but I do have A Game of Fate, which is the retelling of his POV for it, and I just want it so bad. They're so pretty. So I absolutely love this. I keep saying that. You know I love these because they're my favorite books of the month. So duh. And then the last one I want to mention is actually Tragic King by Sparrow Beckett. This book is a virgin hero. He's a pierced hero. He's a metal worker / like blacksmith. He is a recluse, and his family hires him this companion who's this young woman who has actually lived like the BDSM lifestyle before, which is pertinent because when she gets into the house with this guy, her tendencies start to come out. Like, he starts to see that she's submissive. Now, again, our hero is a virgin, so he's never done any of these things with someone. He doesn't like being touched. He doesn't like being around people. He's very secluded to where he lives. But just in things that he does with his words, he starts to notice she's submissive. And he happens to have this friend who is a dom, and he's actually watched his friend practice before, and he knows that he's very interested in it. And so him and this woman end up kind of entering into this relationship together. But wait, there's more. His friend who's into BDSM has actually been in love with him for a very long time, but they're both doms, and so they don't know how that would work together. So this ends up being an MMF. Just telling you, it's a duology. It's the Tragic King and the Feral King, and it was very dark and deep, and I loved it. I loved the heroine. I loved that she was the more experienced in BDSM. I love when the sub is more experienced and is teaching the dom some things, and I loved the dynamic that got created between the three of them and how it plays out and how it works. And I absolutely wish that I had one more in this series. Like, I wanted. It was so well done. So I need to try some more of Sparrow Beckett, but I loved this duology so much. It was fantastic. So there you go. Those are my stats and a few favorites. I didn't go on as much as I usually did because I feel like all the books I mentioned in this I've talked about ad nauseum throughout the month. So make sure you check out some of the playlists that have those in if you want to go even deeper into them. But thank you so much for watching this video. I cannot wait for Fargo Feb and all the things that it has to offer to us. I can't wait to see where things go next. Also, thank you so much for helping me hit 6K. That means so much to me. I can't believe that I'm here. We're coming up on my 3 years on Booktube, and I never thought that, number one, I'd be talking about romance and nasty, dirty romance as freely as I do, and number two, that I would have you guys who will do that with me. So thank you so much for watching. I put out new videos 3 to 4 times a week, and you can watch some more of them right now. Bye.